And this kind of beat is initiated, have not been running around and exerting yourself. So if you would look at a clock and look after you've located your pulse, okay, count how many times it beats in 15 seconds while looking at a clock. Okay, once you've done this, multiply this number by 4, and this is your pulse rate. So approximately, now I just did my heart rate, and my heart rate is about 75 beats per minute. And of course, that's going to vary depending on your activity situation and your situation of heart. So since your heart has been beating since you were 2 weeks old in utero, inside the uterus, how many heartbeats have you had since your heart was stops? So from the time that before you were born, it has been beating for us, and it never stops. It doesn't take a break 24/7, 5 days a year. Very efficient machine. So did you know that the average heart beats or contracts over 3 billion times during a normal life? We are going to look at systole and diastole. We're going to look at how the heartbeat is initiated in the heart. We're going to look at the pacemaker, both the natural pacemaker and an artificial pacemaker. We're going to look at the effects of some hormones, adrenaline and noradrenaline on heart rate. Of course, you could measure your own heart rate as well. At rest and during a physical activity, there's a lab that we can do, and we're going to learn about cardiac output, cardiac stroke volume, and heart rate. And we're going to relate cardiac output because your heart is essentially the contraction of the heart with a listen to the heartbeat. It's a characteristic lub-dub, so it sounds like lub-dub, lub-dub. So what does that mean? So the sound lub is the ventricles contracting. So recall that the ventricles, lower part, the muscular part of the heart. So when the ventricles contract, what happens is blood is being forced back up against the AV valves and causing the AV valves to close. Contracting is the lub sound in a heartbeat sound, lub-dub. The dub is the diastole, which means that the ventricles in through a stethoscope. So after the blood moves into the pulmonary artery and the aorta on the way out of the heart and into the rest of the body and the lungs, pulmonary artery to the lungs and the aorta to the rest of the body, the ventricles then will relax, and then the pulmonary and the aortic valves close. So as you know, the blood only flows one way, open, and then the cycle begins again, and the blood will come from the atria into the ventricles, and then the ventricles will contract and force the blood back out of the heart. Your heart doesn't work alone, though. Your brain tracks the conditions around you, climate, stress, and the level of physical activity, and adjust your cardiovascular system to meet those needs. So now let's take a look closely at the control of heartbeat. So what controls the heartbeat? So we have a part of the heart that we will sketch here. Pardon my left humps here with the septum. And I'm going to draw the valves right here. So you have the separation of the 4 chambers. So this will be the right atria. This is the right ventricle. This is the left atrium. Okay, and this is the left ventricle. And of course, this is the septum right here. It's the SA node, the posterior upper portion of the right atrium. So this is the SA node. It's just a mass of specialized located in the wall of the, I'm just going to say right atrium, in the right atrium, and it is near the entry of the superior vena cava. Okay, so that would be the SA node. This is pacemaker. So pacemaker produces the impulse that starts beat. So it essentially is the signal that the heartbeat is going to start. And that's why it's called the natural pacemaker. Okay, so the AV node in our diagram here, going back to my little sketch. So you have the SA node up in the right atrium. The AV node is still the bottom part of the right atrium, and it is in the, and they are located in the septum, which is the wall of the heart. And this is located between the ventricles. It's directly in contact with the lower part. Bundle of His, and the bundle of His are of nerve fibers running down the septum. So as you can see, the SA node is detecting specialized muscle fibers called the Purkinje fiber. So these specialized muscle cells, these are the specialized cardiac muscle cells, are probably the most efficient nerve fibers because they conduct impulse 5 times faster than other cells. So as you can see, very, very efficient. And why would it have to be efficient? It is initiating contraction of a muscle that can never take a break. So let's take a look again to summarize the series of events in one heartbeat. So to summarize of one heartbeat starts with the SA node. And in the SA node, this is in the right atrium. It then sends the signal in the AV node, which is in the wall of the septum. The signal then, or the impulse, goes to the bundle of His, which is running down the wall, down the septum, and finally the Purkinje fibers, which will then cause the ventricles to contract. Very efficient initiation of impulse. And here, the following diagrams illustrate the sequence of events involved in one heart contraction. As you can see here, SA node, so this is number 1, SA node, right there. His, which branch down the septum, that's number 3. And then the Purkinje fibers, fast initiation of impulse right here, and then finally it will cause the ventricles to contract. So we're gonna summarize that in those 5 steps. And of course, that is the contraction of the heart. And when the heart is at rest or relaxing, what here's what's happening is the ventricles then will relax and the blood relax and the blood will be forced from the atria and into the ventricles, and it is now filling with blood, which means that the are from the atria and into the ventricles, and then the cycle again will repeat, and that is just what happens in a heartbeat. So here's the picture of the heart contracting and causing the ventricles to contract. That would be the lub part, the ventricles contracting. So when a medical professional is listening to the heart with a stethoscope, they can detect if the valves are closing completely or not. So they can take a look at, there could be a valve of the blood leaking backward. It's not good because when the blood goes back and it's not supposed to, it's away, what's going to happen is that there will be mixing of oxygenated and a heart murmur. So what is an electrode? Does that by detecting the potential difference, also known as the voltage across the heart muscles, across the heart. So i.e., so in diagnosing the heart abnormalities. So positive deflections are the so the EKG shows 3 slow negative changes known as the P, R, and T. Those are the slow negative changes. And the positive deflections are the Q and the S waves. So the P represents the contraction. So the P is the contraction impulse of the atria, and the T wave is the ventricular contraction. We will take a look at that in more details, and I'll post another video on the EKG and how to read the PQRST waves. So heartbeat, the SA node sends the electrical impulses at a certain rate, but your heart rate may still change depending on physical demands, stress, or hormonal factors. For example, when you're running or exerting yourself, the increased activity in your muscles produces a faster rate of cellular respiration, which means then that you increase need of taking in the oxygen and eliminating the carbon dioxide in your blood. The part of your brain called the medulla oblongata detects of a hormone called noradrenaline. When noradrenaline reaches the S node, it makes the node fire more rapidly. So once you have, say for example, now you start running, your heart will then gradually slow to a resting increase in blood pressure. So the response is detected by special blood pressure receptors located in the walls of the aorta and carotid arteries that send the messages to the brain or the medulla oblongata. So physical activity is not the only trigger for an increased heart rate. Your nervous system releases another hormone called adrenaline, or also known as epinephrine, when you are nervous, angry, excited, or after a sudden shock or pain. So all of the fight or flight response. So the adrenaline is called your fight or flight response. It's a physiological change that prepares the body for anticipated activity. So this response increases the heart rate, increasing the blood flow to the muscle. So these two hormones, the noradrenaline that detects physical activity, and adrenaline, which releases, which is released by your brain because the nervous system detects emotions. They are the hormones that will increase your heartbeat. so that your body can deal with the demand for oxygen and elimination of carbon dioxide. So when you're listening, if you're using a stethoscope and you're listening to the lub-dub sound, what you would hear is a regular rhythmic pattern, but sometimes it is not a good rhythm. So arrhythmia, beating of the heart, rhythmic. So it's irregular, in other words. It beats arrhythmia, rhythm, rhythmia. So what happens then if our SA node is not functioning? That would be one of the reasons why there is an irregular heartbeat or arrhythmia. Then what we would do is install a pacemaker or an electronic pacemaker. So when the natural pacemaker fails to work properly, they can implant this small, it's battery operated device, so that it can help the heartbeat in a regular rest, or they may be temporarily located outside of the body, but that would be more cumbersome and it could be a little bit more dangerous because it can dislodge. So both types use to send electrical. So that's and it will turn on automatically when the heartbeat falls below a certain level. So for example, if a regular heart rate is 70 for a resting heart rate, a demand pacemaker then will be set at say 70, and that would be the minimum heartbeat that we kick in and correct the arrhythmia. So another term called cardiac output will pump the heart. So basically, it is a measure of the volume of blood that is pumped by the heartbeat. It is also a measure of the level of oxygen delivered to the body. So what are the that affect cardiac output? Well, one is cardiac output. Well, what this is this is the amount. This is the amount of blood that is forced out of the heart when the heart contracts. So that is the stroke volume. And of course, the heart rate is how fast the heart beats. So these are the two things that will determine and your heart rate. So the average person has a heart rate, let's say it's about 70 beats per minute. So an average person at rest would have a cardiac output of 4,900 milliliters per minute. So think about that for a second. That's 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. So this is 4.9. So that's about the maximum heart rate, also known as the target heart rate, is the highest heart rate you can attain during a strenuous physical activity. So those of you who have worked out, when you are working out, you want to push off to the max out of breath. So this is known as your target heart rate. This rate will diminish as you get older, although maximum heart rate does not appear to be related to fitness. So the more important indicator of fitness is the time it takes for your heart to return, also as the recovery time. Okay, so after you exert yourself and you have attained your cardiac heart rate, your target heart rate, the rate of the amount of time that it takes for you to bring it back down to your resting heart rate is called the recovery time. And this amount a marathon, but then you'd be able to recover quite quickly, relatively quickly, because you have a strong factors that affect the stroke. Well, how easily, I'm just going to use a symbol heart, how easily the heart fills with blood and how easily the heart empties blood. Okay, so this is the in and this is the out. All right, so the how easily the heart fills with blood has to do with the of the ventricles to stretch without getting damaged. How easily the heart empties the blood out of the heart has to do with the strength of a ventricular contraction can can push the blood out. So regular cardiovascular exercise will enlarge the ventricular chambers and increase their stretchiness. It's called the distensibility. Athletes who are very fit have high stroke volume. This means they can maintain high oxygen delivery to patients. For example, the resting heart rate could be or about 35 beats per minute, that of a regular person. And so that means their heart is so strong that they don't have to work as hard and as fast to deliver enough oxygen to the heart rate that you can reach during a strenuous physical. And the less time your recovery time takes to its resting state, it means that your vascular fitness. So that ends our lesson 2 of our 2 questions already in our previous lesson. So please make sure that you write down all your answers into your booklet. Now, if you don't have your booklet with you yet, you can pick up a booklet from the school. We only have maybe 2.5 of these booklets left to do before June. If you can call the school to pick them up, I left them in the front of the office, so pick them up. If you don't have time to pick them up, I will post the exercises anyway, the lesson exercise. And so what you can do is just answer them on a piece of paper, take a picture of them, email them to me. I will put more details in the blog. So this is your assignment for today. Lesson 2 exercise. Answer. Take a picture, scan, and email. 3 easy steps. Answer, scan, and email to me at mpactican@wsd1.com.